Good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. Today is Gotan-e, the birthday of the founder of this Shin Buddhist tradition. Shinran Shonin was born May 21st, 1173. The efforts of Shinran Shonin and his teacher Honen led to the development and the growth of the Nembutsu teachings of Shin Buddhism. This path allowed the teachings of Buddhism to become available to people of all walks of life, not just those who entered the monasteries or those who were born into royalty. Shinran and Honen initiated a grassroots movement of Buddhism, which caused these teachings to flourish in unimaginable scale. The simple people, the farmers and the fishermen, finally had access to the Dharma. It was these people who were the Issei pioneer that came to America to make a new life. Through their efforts, we now find Shin Buddhist temples all along the west coast of America and sprinkled throughout the United States as the longest-standing organized school of Buddhism in U.S. history. From these faceless people immigrating to America emerged our families, mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, great-grandma, great-grandpa. Their lives and efforts created this temple and others just like it. Their lives and efforts created the karmic connections and the karmic conditions that allow each of us to sit here today in these seats and enjoy this service together. We connect the dots of this historical path to every life here. Pause. Earlier this week, I was able to go to the sports committee end-of-year dinner. It was a very nice occasion with supporters, committee members, coaches, and families, and the food was great. It has been a plus for me to be able to see the sports committee in action through meetings, services, practices, and games this year, and I appreciate being included. Because of this, I have a basketball story to share with you. There was a news story about a junior high kid named Jabari Stiles. He loved basketball and regularly went to the boys' club courts where there would be pickup games. But Jabari was different. He had gotten an infection when he was very young, had to have his hands amputated. The right arm was cut at the forearm. Left arm was cut above the elbow. He would stand there when teams were being picked, and the others would tell him to go home. He would never get picked to be on a team. The interviewer asked him, "Why don't you play soccer? Seems like a natural thing." And Jabari just shrugged and said, "I'm just not very good at soccer." So when the school year started, Jabari went up to the coach, the basketball coach, and told him he wanted to come out for the team. The coach told him, "You got to come to tryouts, just like everybody else." Jabari said, "Coach, I don't even have to play. I just want to be on the team. I've never been on a team." He went to the tryouts and hustled more than anyone, trying as hard as he could to make the team. They kept him on the team, and he went to each game and sat on the bench. Then the last game of the season, coach put him in the last 3 minutes or so. He was thrown the ball, and voices from the stands were yelling, "Shoot it, shoot it." Jabari took the shot, and he made a 3. You could imagine how happy he was as he ran back on defense. A few possessions later, the clock was winding down, and he was thrown the ball again. He took the shot. The ball went in. Another 3. And then the horn sounded. He ran to the other side of the court, overwhelmed. Like this. And then the teammates and others from the stand swarmed him to congratulate him. Jabari Stiles It was a great story. We each have different limitations and hardships, but we try. We try to hold the right perspective and the right values so that our players and coaches and families can grow through support and mutual understanding. This will hold true for all of us. Key to Shin Buddhism is to point out and remind each other of our connections to each other, to family and friends, to the universe. This brings the lessons of interdependence and interrelatedness to have meaning, depth, and weight. When we share this, people feel it. We already know what it feels like to be grounded and stable because that's where we all come from. I'd like to share another story today. It's a story of a Mr. William Lundquist. He was brought to visit our temple in Oregon a few years back. Mr. Lundquist came to live in Ontario just to care for his mother. He got a job at the local newspaper and started to visit our temple. His visits turned into regular Sunday stops each week. His mother was placed in one of the nursing homes in town. Eventually, he moved to Hawaii with his wife. From Hawaii, he wrote a letter of thanks to our temple. This is what he wrote. I had never heard of a Buddha named Amida, but our sensei told the story of how there was once a being who vowed to not reach enlightenment unless he could take every sentient being in the universe with him, and that he had accomplished that goal. That impressed me. Even Jesus had vowed only to save those who believed in him. He sat in the hondo and he listened to the Dharma. He heard everyone around him mumbling the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namandav, Namandav, not knowing what was being said. In my winter of darkness, I could feel light growing in my heart. I took refuge in the Buddha of immeasurable light and life, and felt both returning to me. I took refuge in the Dharma, and it made sense to me. I took refuge in the Sangha, and the members welcomed me like a long-lost son, no matter that I was of a different race and had a different religious background. Karmic conditions brought Mr. Lundquist to the temple, where he encountered Shin Buddhism and felt welcomed and accepted by the three treasures of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. He moved to Hawaii, where he made a point to find another Shin Buddhist temple and to continue to listen to the Dharma. The void he once felt was filled with the connection to reality that the Nembutsu allows. Mr. Lundquist was able to ground himself in his own life and to get beyond the tumbling turmoil of loss and confusion. The point is that there's a very clear shift in perspective that the Nembutsu teachings direct us towards. We move from self-centered to other-centered. We move from confusion and anger to awareness. We move from greed to gratitude, from narrow-minded to wide-minded, from closed-minded to open-minded. And this is done not through blind faith, but through an understanding of human nature and reality. This is the simple beauty of our Nembutsu path that we each have access to and that can enhance any other teachings that guide our choices in life. I have one more story. This is a story of an elderly woman named Rose. In her later years, she decided to go to college. The first day of school, our professor introduced himself and challenged us to get to know someone we didn't already know. I stood up to look around when a gentle hand touched my shoulder. I turned around to find a wrinkled little old lady beaming up at me with a smile that lit up her entire being. She said, "Hi, handsome. My name's Rose. I'm 87 years old. Can I give you a hug?" I laughed and enthusiastically responded, "Of course you may," and she gave me a giant squeeze. "Why are you in college at such a young, innocent age?" I asked. She jokingly replied, "I'm here to meet a rich husband, get married, have a couple of kids." "No, seriously," I asked. I was curious what may have motivated her to be taking on this challenge at her age. "I always dreamed of having a college education, and now I'm getting one," she told me. After class, we walked to the Student Union building and shared a chocolate milkshake. We became instant friends. Every day for the next 3 months, we would leave class together and talk non-stop. I was always mesmerized listening to this time machine as she shared her wisdom and experience with me. Over the course of the year, Rose became a campus icon, and she easily made friends wherever she went. She loved to dress up, and she reveled in the attention bestowed upon her from the other students. She was living it up. At the end of the semester, we invited Rose to speak at our football banquet. I'll never forget what she taught us. She was introduced and stepped up to the podium. As she began to deliver her prepared speech, she dropped her 3x5 cards on the floor. Frustrated and a little bit embarrassed, she leaned into the microphone and simply said, "I'm sorry I'm so jittery. I gave up beer, and this whiskey is killing me." I'll never get my speech back in order, so let me just tell you what I know. As we laughed, she cleared her throat and began, "We do not stop playing because we're old. We grow old because we stop playing. There are only 4 secrets to staying young, being happy, and achieving success. You have to laugh and find humor every day. You got to have a dream. When you lose your dreams, you die. We have so many people walking around who are dead and don't even know it. There's a huge difference between growing older and growing up. If you're 19 years old and lie in bed for a full year, don't do one productive thing, you will turn 20 years old. If I'm 87 and stay in bed for a year and never do anything, I'll turn 88. Anybody can grow older. That doesn't take any talent or ability. The idea is to grow up by always finding opportunity and change. Have no regrets. The elderly usually don't have regrets for what we did, but rather for things we did not do. The only people who fear death are those with regrets." She concluded her speech by courageously singing The Rose. She challenged each of us to study the lyrics and live them out in our daily lives. At the year's end, Rose finished the college degree she had begun all those months ago. 1 week after Rose graduated, she died peacefully in her sleep. Over 2,000 college students attended her funeral in tribute to the wonderful woman who taught by example that it's never too late to be all you can possibly be. These words have been passed along in loving memory of Rose. Remember, growing older is mandatory. Growing up is optional. We all make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give. Each of these stories are reflections of appreciation. We learn appreciation from the words and the actions of others. In Shin Buddhism, we're reminded repeatedly to step beyond our self-centeredness. We do this by acknowledging all the people and conditions beyond ourselves that create our lives. We express this with the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu, and we show our appreciation by living our lives as well as we can. Last week, I was invited to the San Fernando Valley Buddhist Temple as their Gotan-e guest speaker. Because of that, I had to miss Mother's Day here at the Betsuin. So these are a week late, but I have 2 Mother's Day jokes for you. A mother and her young son returned from the grocery store, began putting away all the groceries. The boy opened the box of animal crackers and spread them out all over the table. "What are you doing?" the mother asked. "The box says, 'Don't eat them if the seal's broken.' I'm looking for the seal." After putting her children to bed, different mother, a mother changed into old slacks and a worn-out blouse so that she could proceed to wash her hair. She could hear in the next room that the girls were running around, jumping on the bed, and getting more and more rambunctious. Her tolerance was growing thin. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. She put a towel around her head and stormed into their room. She put them back into bed with severe warnings to settle down, go to sleep. While leaving the room, she overheard the 3-year-old say with a shaky voice, "Who was that?" Happy birthday, Shinran. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida.